Today I am in wine country, Napa Valley, California, and the weather is awful. Rainy and muddy everywhere you go, but it should make this one interesting because today we're testing out the all-new Lexus LX 700H. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Talon, and if you like what you see, consider clicking subscribe because I make new videos every single week. I'm gonna make this one quick because it is absolutely pouring and everything is getting soaked right now. My friends at Lexus reached out to me and said, hey, new vehicle, LX 700H. We got a bunch of different trims. Come out to California and drive them around on-road, off-road, and let us know what you think about them. The LX platform is iconic. It has a cult following all across the world, and for a very good reason. This is Lexus's flagship SUV, and for this year, this is the first time with an integrated hybrid system in here. Performance powertrain with the hybrid system, it makes this thing an absolute blast to drive. I've got a whole lot of basic specs to just throw at you guys if you've never heard about this thing before, but then we're going to get into some of the serious driving of a bunch of different trims, mainly the ones that I'm interested in, like this Overtrail here. I don't feel like standing out in the rain to do this, so let's do it from the comfort and luxury of the cabin of this vehicle. Getting this brand new vehicle soaked, everything is so wet. Whew. All right, let's just dive right into the specs of this car. The LX 700H is powered by a 3.4 liter twin turbocharged V6. It's paired up to a 10-speed direct shift transmission. And again, this year, Lexus introduced the hybrid power system to this vehicle. This is giving you 457 horsepower and 583 pound-feet of torque with a combined EPA estimated 20 miles per gallon. We have a towing capacity up to 8,000 pounds, and a lot of that is thanks to the new GAF platform. When we're talking about the LX, we of course have something that's a little bit longer and a little bit heavier, and the new frame really helps out with that. It's a 3-cross frame design with a new spare tire cross in the rear, which actually repositions the spare tire for the hybrid battery system. What's cool about this is it actually lowers the point of installation for that, but it keeps the same departure angle, so this thing should still be really good off-road. We have double wishbone suspension in the front, a multi-link rear, and the suspension on these vehicles is really interesting. We will talk about that in depth as we're driving around. Now, because it is so wet and rainy here, a feature of the LX that I think is going to be quite useful is the waterproof structure encasing the hybrid battery system. The battery system in the rear seems to be entirely encapsulated, and it gives you a fording depth of 27.5 inches. Now, I don't think it's going to happen today, but if you end up crossing water that is a little bit deeper than that, there is also a sensor inside of that battery system that will display somewhere here on one of the massive displays, and it will let you know that some water is present. What you do after that point, I'm not entirely sure, and hopefully anyone who ever owns one of these doesn't need to find out. Now, speaking of luxury, let's go over some of the standard equipment on these vehicles because there's a lot of really luxury features that you can expect no matter what grade you go with. All of these are going to come standard with a Torsen limited slip center locking differential, which I have actually already used. Driving up through this vineyard, it was very muddy and a little bit steep at parts, and this thing conquered it with ease. You also have active height control and an adaptive variable suspension, AHC, AVS. There's a lot of acronyms for this stuff. What's cool about this is you can change the ride height of the vehicle right over here by my right leg. You can set that stuff manually, or the vehicle is automatically going to adjust the suspension, the ride height, the dampening, and everything based off of your driving conditions. We're really going to see how this works as soon as we get to the off-road course. We of course have the MTS multi-terrain select system and the DAC crawl modes. For the MTS in 4 high, you're going to have 5 different selections: auto, dirt, sand, mud, and deep snow. And then if you activate 4 low, you're going to have 4 different modes: auto, sand, mud, and rock. Multi-terrain monitoring comes standard on these vehicles as well, so you have 4 cameras positioned on the outside of the vehicle. This is what gives you access to that Pano View monitoring system to show you everything on the outside of the vehicle, including the underfloor. I talked about this briefly in my review of the GX550, and it's a feature that I definitely like. I wish it was incorporated onto more products out there. The crawl control on this vehicle also has another feature which I'm not familiar with yet, but they call it a turn assist. Essentially, if you're in crawl control and I'm turning one direction or another, it's actually going to brake the rear inside wheel, allowing me to make a little bit of a sharper turn, a little bit more maneuverable when we're off-road. The downhill assist control is something that you can turn on if you don't want to drive manually yourself. Same thing with the crawl control. It just makes getting out of situations a little bit easier if someone is not comfortable with actually taking a vehicle like this through an off-road course. And then we have the drive mode selector right over here. 6 different options for this one. We have Eco, Comfort, Normal, Sport, Sport S Plus, and then a custom mode as well, where you can kind of blend the dampening, the steering controls, your climate control, and you can pick and choose what different modes you want all of those to be on. These all come standard with a 12.3-inch HD upper touchscreen as well as a 7-inch lower touchscreen. The one up top is going to mainly be for your Apple CarPlay, navigation, Android Auto, things like that. And then the lower touchscreen, that's where you're going to find information for your climate control, your MTS, status of your differentials, any kind of off-road info that this vehicle is going to show you. And already that is something that I really appreciate. We're going to dive into that a little bit too. These seats have 5 different options for massaging for the passenger and the driver. We have some rear window shades, an optional 3rd row on some models, and this thing is just completely packed with features. Now, speaking of that, there are 5 different actual grades of this vehicle that you can choose from. Starting from the bottom and working our way to the top, we first have the Premium, and then one that I'm surprisingly kind of excited to drive today, the F-Sport handling trim. We then have the Overtrail, which is definitely my speed. It's currently the one that I'm sitting in. And then the Luxury and the Ultra Luxury for you really bougie people out there. So I'm gonna try to drive as many of those 5 trims as I can and pick my favorite. I can already kind of spoil it for you guys right now. I'm pretty sure it's going to be the Overtrail. And that's because of the more overlandy, off-roady features inside this vehicle, but I'm not going to knock any of them until I try them all. All right, so we're gonna kick things off from like the base. And to be honest, I'm not gonna talk about these a whole lot in this video, but we're talking about the Lexus LX 600. I'm currently sitting in a 600 Premium, and the main difference between this and the 700 that I'm gonna be focusing on is the drivetrain. 3.4 liter turbocharged V6, no hybrid on this one. That's where the base MSRP starts, and then you can also get the non-hybrid version of 2 other trims as well. You have the 600 F-Sport handling as well as the 600 Luxury. The reason I'm not driving these today is because of the time constraint and the weather. I am already very familiar with this drivetrain, so this is basically going to be like the basis of the 700. You still have a lot of the standard features like a giant cool box over here. You have the Pano-View cameras all the way around, 12.3-inch display as well as a 7-inch display. The gauge cluster on this one is a little bit different. It is not full digital all the way across. But all that being said, you still have very premium materials everywhere you touch this thing. So if you're trying to get into a luxury SUV, this is going to be the starting point. I am, of course, most interested in off-roading and kind of like the performance side of things, so that's why I'm really leaning towards the 700. But again, the 600 will start with the Premium. You have the F-Sport handling 600 as well as the Luxury. We're here for the power, so let's go hop in a hybrid. So with that being said, I am currently sitting in a F-Sport handling Lexus LX 700H. This one is already very eye-grabbing. Of course, we have like the blood red and black accented interior in here. Feels like I'm sitting in a sports car, but I'm in a big luxury SUV, so kind of a cool contrast here. When I think of large SUVs, I don't think of off-road performance. I generally don't think of luxury. I think of something like a Ford Excursion, just like a big kid hauler with some cargo space. So getting into this realm of SUVs, at least for me, is kind of new and I like it. For a quick overview of the F-Sport, this thing comes equipped with 22-inch forged aluminum wheels, and then up front is an F-mesh design spindle grille with a jet black chrome grille frame as well. So it kind of makes the whole vehicle look a little bit more sporty. I definitely prefer this grille option, but it is huge too, so that's something to keep in mind. Now, because this one is all about performance and handling, the suspension is kind of uniquely tuned front and rear with performance dampeners, and we are hopefully going to be able to tell the difference between something like this and a luxury or an Overtrail. You, of course, have the Torsen limited slip differential as well as a rear stabilizer back there. I'm not even going to show you that because I don't want to lay in the mud and in the puddles of water. There's also special tuning of the power steering and the adaptive variable suspension, the AVS. So I'm assuming this thing will kind of stay low, get a little stiffer. The steering may tighten up, and I'm kind of hoping it drives like a sports car, which is wild. Again, it's a big SUV. We have a heated steering wheel wrapped in leather, really nice paddle shifters, which you will find on a lot of these trims. F-Sport badging emblems basically all throughout on the steering wheel here. We have them on the back of the headrest as well, and on the outside of the vehicle too. So we're not gonna waste any time here. We're gonna get this thing powered up. We'll try to see if there's anything different between these models. Heads-up display, pretty sure that's standard on all of these. Looks like pretty much all the same controls. Center locker on this one, which is standard. Going to spin the drive mode. We're going to start in comfort mode because luxury. So here we go, twisting through the back roads of Napa Valley. 3.4 cylinder, twin turbocharged V6 with the hybrid on top of it. This is similar drivetrain to what you find on a third-gen Tundra. If you opt for a Pro or one of the hybrid versions, similar to the Sequoia, but being that it's Lexus, I'm assuming it is tuned differently, especially the F-Sport. The suspension in these vehicles, being that it is hydraulically controlled, already feels really good in comfort mode, very similar to the GX550, which I took a look at a little while ago. So you couple the on-road comfort with all of the creature comforts of the seats, both heated and cooled, massaging, and I could drive this thing around pretty much all day. Take it on really long road trips all across the country, logging like 12, 14, 16 hours. And this is going to be, obviously, a very comfortable vehicle to drive. As I'm just cruising slow around town here, I'm already noticing the help from that hybrid system. Adding the hybrid to this vehicle is really tailored for performance, not so much fuel economy. I believe we're getting 1 mile per gallon better than previous generations, but the reason for the hybrid is really for the power delivery. It's going to be very smooth and controlled, just like all of the new hybrid systems that we've seen through Lexus and Toyota over the past couple of years. It's going to be great on-road, but also it's going to be a big help off-road at the same time. Now, as we're heading up into the canyon here, I'm going to start switching through these drive modes. Just normal mode here. I think that will make the suspension and steering settings just normal. Not too light or soft, but also not so tight and stiff. And these are all things that you can adjust independently if you dive into the custom modes as well. These roads are getting very curvy very quickly, so we're just gonna jump right up again. Sport S. This is the mode that this car should feel a little more refined with. F-Sport handling is all about handling, and while we don't have the greatest conditions today, we're going to try to have a little bit of fun here. That power comes on very quickly with the twin turbo and the hybrid system. If you have a non-hybrid twin turbo setup like this, of course it's going to take a little bit to spool up. Specifically, kind of talking about like my third gen Tundra, but with the hybrid system allowing you to get instantaneous power, which will then allow the turbos to spool up, it's instant power and then turbo power, and it just kind of sucks you back into the seat. And I'm like hardly getting on it right now either. It feels really good. I am a little nervous about these wet roads. I don't want to get too wild, but it does not feel like I'm driving a very large SUV that is capable of towing up to 8,000 pounds. It's very nimble, which is surprising. Now we're gonna get full wicked here, go up into Sport S Plus, and I don't even know if there's gonna be a straightaway. Here's a little bit of one. Slowing down to 20 miles an hour, and we're just gonna punch it. Whoa. Steering is definitely tightened up. It feels almost wrong. I feel like I shouldn't be able to drive a vehicle like this in this way, shape, and form. Let's actually try out the manual mode too. I believe if I just pull this straight back, that will give me access to the paddle shifters. Downshift. Oh yeah. Brakes feel good. A lot of engine noise when you're up in the Sport S Plus mode. These roads are incredible, by the way. The power is very punchy, but also linear at the same time. I think driving around with the paddle shifters definitely allows you to have more control. So here I'm going up a slight grade. I can downshift into, let's say, third. Not quite sports car-esque because I'm definitely feeling the weight. Not a lot of body roll though for how big this vehicle is, and that's definitely thanks to the adaptive variable suspension. But if you have the need for a big vehicle and you got to get somewhere in a hurry, this is going to be the one for you, for sure. Now, as we get to the top of the mountain here, the visibility is getting increasingly worse. So I'm going to play it smart here and just slow down a little bit. I would be very curious to see how this thing performs on roads like this in dry, sunny, kind of hot climates. In the Sport S mode, the digital gauge cluster also changes, and it basically abbreviates your lower RPM range. So it's just a tachometer with your miles per hour just below that. That's basically Lexus saying, hey, stay on the throttle. Keep this thing in the high RPM range because it's going to have a lot of performance for you. So if I had to compare this to the GX 550, that thing in Sport Plus mode surprised me. It gets up and moves, it's very quick. And then this with the hybrid on top of it is even quicker. And again, it almost feels wrong. Like I shouldn't be able to drive a vehicle like this. So it's kind of like this, I don't know, very strange feeling. I like that everything is more refined and tuned up for the performance aspect of things. But at the same time, if I'm on a road like this, I want a sports car. If you only have like a one-car garage and you want something that'll kind of do everything, sure, this would be a good option for you if you're going to spend most of your time on the road. Out of all of the options, I think this would probably fall into like my second favorite. But if you guys know me, first and foremost, I like being off-road. So having the larger diameter wheels and a smaller tire on here for like the performance on-road aspect of things, it's not my style. I think I would prefer the 18-inch wheel and 33-inch tire on the Overtrail because I feel like I shouldn't be able to drive a large, heavy vehicle like I am through these turns. It's very fun, don't get me wrong. I just don't think that this is the one for me personally. I do actually really like the red interior on this. Instead of using the wood, it's almost like looks like a brushed aluminum accents all over, and that doesn't just stop with like the cockpit up here. The rear seats in this too are also bright red. You have the kind of aluminum looking panels on the doors. Also comparing this to a 550, I thought the 550 Luxury Plus that I had was very, very nice, very luxury. And then I get into an LX and everything feels even a little bit more heightened. Again, this is like the flagship vehicle for Lexus, at least when it comes to SUVs, and everything, I mean, fit and finish everywhere you touch in here just feels very sophisticated, well-rounded and polished. It is a very expensive vehicle, but now that I'm sitting inside of it, I understand kind of why they are priced the way they are. This is a very nice vehicle, at least for my standards. So while it is fun to kind of get after it on these back roads and cruise really fast with all of the refinements of the F-Sport handling, I'm thinking that the Overtrail is going to be a little bit more my speed. So the one that I am probably going to like the most, I think you guys might too, I'm currently sitting in a 2025 Lexus LX 700H Overtrail. There are a few distinguishing things about this specific package. The center locking differential down here is standard across all of these vehicles, but on the Overtrail right here by my right knee, we have both a front and rear locking differential as well. So this is one of the first triple lock products that Toyota or Lexus has produced in a long time, like since the 80s, I believe. Now, with all of the refinement that has gone on with the different MTS, DAC, crawl control, and all of the technology features for off-roading, that's packed into these vehicles. I actually didn't really feel the need for a triple locked vehicle. I feel like the MTS basically handles everything that you might encounter off-road, and they've been doing a really good job with that. However, having a triple locked vehicle definitely gives me peace of mind, especially when you put crawl control and the MTS stuff on top of that. Down on the left-hand side, we have controls for the rear hatch as well as an inverter. Because this is a hybrid system, they're able to give us a 2400 watt inverter system, allowing you to plug in some camp gear in the back, whether it's like a microwave or an air fryer, a blender, if you want to make some margaritas while you're driving this thing on the beach. I really like how much power is coming out of these hybrid systems, not only for charging and stuff like that, but also the performance side. The Overtrail is also coming with all-weather floor mat liners, a 33-inch all-terrain tire on an 18-inch wheel. This is also one of the first times that they've put a 33-inch tire on an LX product, which I am a huge fan of. We also have a little bit of protection underneath with a skid plate up front. And then the Overtrail has a matte gray grille, black door handles, a dark gray roof rails, dark chrome finish window trim and bumper trim, the black over fenders, and these are also available in a 2 or 3 row. Now, I think that's enough talking about this vehicle. Let's actually see how this thing performs, jumping straight into this off-road course that Lexus has set up for everyone. I'm going to go fairly bare bones on one of the first laps. We are in 4 low currently with the center locking differential. I'm going to use multi-terrain select, and we're going to go into mud mode for sure. It is super muddy up here. Now, I'm assuming as I start to go over some obstacles, the adaptive variable suspension, that's going to kind of work by itself, but they do have controls over here. So I'm curious if I could put the suspension in its highest setting and then just kind of leave it there, knowing that I'm going to be driving on rough terrain. Now, I'm curious if there is a way to turn on all of the cameras so I can actually have them displayed right now. There are so many buttons and features in this thing, so I'm not entirely familiar with where everything is right now. Oh, it's right over here, right over by the odometer trip set. We have a view button, and now I have the pano view of all of my tires and a really nice front display on here as well. So we're coming up on our first obstacle here. We're going to have a little bit of an articulation test. Some logs buried in the mud. I'm just gonna go really slow, kind of let this thing work. Ooh, it is slippy too. You can feel it kind of slip over the wet logs, muddy logs. It is a very strange feeling driving a luxury vehicle that also has off-road focus to it. It is still very comfortable though. I mean, I feel like doing that in something like my Tacoma would feel even a lot more rough than that. The hydraulic suspension on here, again, not air, it's all controlled with hydraulics pumping fluid into the different cylinders to adjust and give you comfort and traction in real time. Feels really good. Now we are on to a rocky section. Big chunky rocks, wet, muddy. Big log in the middle here. Some pretty big bumps, but again, still feeling really comfortable. I also feel like this is not really going to put me in a situation where I will even need to use any of the other controls. I don't think I'll need crawl control. I don't think I'll need the downhill assist control. I don't even think I'm going to need to triple lock this thing, but maybe we will, just for the heck of it. I definitely feel the weight and the length of this vehicle, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. So far, it feels like every single tire is staying in contact with the ground. The new cross frame for the tire there is going to leave my departure angles essentially the same. Just feels like I'm off-roading in a big, comfy couch. They have spotters all over this course. Some of these guys who actually built all of these berms and obstacles and stuff like that. So I think they get pretty excited when they watch someone drive over stuff that they've created. Here we have some really steep, muddy bank turns. I'm leaning at about 25, 28. almost 30 degrees of roll angle right there. We have a water crossing. Doesn't look to be too terribly deep. And yeah, this is definitely comfort off-road. Best of both worlds. I would not want to run this course in another trim other than the Overtrail because, of course, this has those 33-inch all-terrain tires on an 18-inch wheel, giving you even more comfort when bumping over rocks and stuff like that. I never really considered how a vehicle like this would handle off-road situations like that, but it's pretty fun. I'm not gonna lie. I think I'm gonna go back and do it a few more times. Oh man, that was pretty fun. Just like a little obstacle course to kind of get a feel for how the new LX actually performs off-road. And again, pretty surprising. It's just driving like a big comfy couch over some pretty cool obstacles. It's not like the most gnarly terrain ever. I would love to kind of get one of these vehicles back on my home turf to see really how like the size feels on trails and maybe a little bit more technical obstacles to navigate through, but I think it did a really great job. Now, one of the features that I really like about the LX platform when compared to the GX is actually this 7-inch info screen over here. As you guys know, I talk about it all the time, but I appreciate physical buttons when it comes to different controls, the climate control, your mode selections and stuff like that. I hate when I have to touch a kind of lackluster touchscreen to get access to some things that you really don't even want to be taking your eyes off the road while you're driving to get to. One feature that I didn't really care for on the GX is present here on the LX2, and that is getting the controls for your seats. It has power adjustments down on the left side where you would expect it. It has your heated and cooled modes with an auto mode as well right up here by the gear selection, but they are massaging seats, and to get to them I'm almost going to come to a stop here because the roads are muddy. I have to select vehicle, select seat controls, select massage, select my seat, and then pick what kind of massage feature I want. Super first world problems, obviously, but I wish there was some kind of like on-off button that was down next to the heated or cooled seat controls. That way you could just click massage and maybe it would just default back to the last mode that you had it set in. That's an idea for you, Lexus. I think that would be a lot nicer than navigating through the touchscreen display. But can't complain because right now I'm driving around a vineyard, and although it's raining, I am comfortable and I'm getting a full body massage, which feels really good. So back to these screens, the 12-inch screen again is for navigation, CarPlay, things like that, vehicle settings, audio, phone calls. The 7-inch screen is more tailored towards the driving dynamics and some things that you have either enabled or disabled on the vehicle. I'm actually going to come off to the side of the road here, and we're going to check out the differential lock screen, which is really cool. It's fixed up here in the left-hand corner, and if I pull the gear select to the left for a little bit, it's going to be in neutral now. This is actually the first LX that has gear selection by wire, electronic steering, and this is electronic, it's not actually mechanical. So now that I'm in neutral, I'm going to spin the dial to go into 4 low. The center differential is already locked. Now I can tap my front locker and the rear locker with a little bit of motion there to kind of allow everything to engage. And now we are triple locked, which is really cool. Now again, one thing that I like about this is previously I thought the redefined MTS system was kind of a way out of having triple lockers on a vehicle like this. It does a really good job at keeping traction no matter what situation you're in, but then you add 3 lockers on top of that. I feel like this thing could be unstoppable. The only thing that may give it some issue is going to be the size and weight depending on the trails that you're on. So having MTS control and visibly seeing that I am completely triple locked here is a good feeling. You can also see your height adjustment here too, which you can go up and down, and the hydraulics, it's like a lowrider, just lowers pretty quickly. Going back up, the rear, and then the front. I know you guys can't see on camera, but it actually does it very quickly, which is nice. I feel like most air systems are not that quick. You have your pitch and roll angles over there as well. Oh, we can actually adjust all of the physical buttons here on the touchscreen as well. I guess that's a nice option. I don't really care for that because, again, I like physical stuff, but that's cool. Vehicle information, oh, and settings. Under the settings, it looks like you can change the contrast and brightness. They have like a color palette there to see what you're looking at. Pretty cool, simple, straightforward. Now, I guess being triple locked while going down this is a little excessive, so let's turn this stuff off for now. Let's see how quick it is. In neutral, I'm gonna tap maybe both of them at the same time and then roll. The rear is disengaged. Maybe I have to tap the front again. I'm not sure if you can do it at the same time. And now the front is disengaged, so simple center lock. I am still in 4 low. Let's move that to 4 high. This is 4-wheel drive all the time. And now I can go back into my 4 high mode selections. We're gonna go to mud. Now, another cool feature that I found out today about the variable suspension, you can obviously adjust the height of the vehicle, and it will go to a low setting, it will go to a high setting, but apparently it also gives you a little bit extra travel, like maybe 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. If you do get stuck in a situation, it can kind of like push itself, or I should say push its tires down to the ground to grab a little bit more traction. It's not going to ride at that extra height, but it will allow you to basically articulate the tires and wheels a little bit more to grab traction in case you actually need that. So that's a whole lot of information about the off-road stuff. I guess we should talk about some of the creature comforts of this vehicle. I'm really mostly focused on the off-road stuff, but when it comes to overlanding, how would this thing be for camping? Let's first hop into the back seat here to experience what it would be like as a passenger. You have access to the center console here, which is something that I haven't even talked about, but all of these come standard with a cool box. And this thing is really interesting because obviously it's kind of like a little refrigerator, but I found out the true story behind this. This was actually kind of an ask from NATO. They were kind of tasked with developing a cool box or a refrigeration system for Doctors Without Borders. So in other countries like Africa and the Middle East, they were using vehicles similar to this to transport things like penicillin all over the place through really hot climates and deserts. So that is the true reason why they came up with the cool box. And now stateside, most people are just going to put some smoothies, energy drinks, coffees, stuff like that. Bottle of water in here to keep you hydrated while you are traveling around, but that's the true story behind the cool box, and I like a good story. We have passenger controls down here for heated seats, cooled seats in the rear too, which is nice. You can change all of your climate controls here, and it looks like we have 2 USB-C ports down below. There's a grab handle over on the side. 60-40 split in a vehicle like this, and then I believe some of them are 50-50 as well, so I would be a very comfortable passenger in here. 25 speaker Mark Levinson sound system in this, which is an option. You can also just get the standard premium sound, which is a 10 speaker system. We have shades for the windows and also extra vents back here as a passenger. Very nice touch. So now we've seen how this thing does off-road. Let's flip this forward, tumble seats, and then coming around to the back we have the auto lift gate. This will hopefully keep me out of the rain a little bit. You can see the hybrid battery system under this kind of like tray area here. There are little latches to lift that up. So this tray gives you a little bit more of a kind of flat cargo area here. I believe this will hold like 175 pounds, which would be perfect for sitting on. You can store some gear underneath here. You have the seat controls over here to put the third row up or down, which is of course an option in the Overtrail. We have cup holders, electronic seat controls for these as well to lean them forward and backward. One thing that I'm curious about though is how flat this is. So one of the big differences that I'm noticing right now between this and the 4Runners that we just took a look at is that this lays relatively flat. We do have this area right here which is kind of a void, but this would be much easier to turn into a sleeping platform if you decided to actually take this thing out in the wild and go overlanding with it, which is kind of a crazy concept for a vehicle that's breaking the $100,000 threshold. I'm not saying people won't do it. If I could do that, I think I would cruise around in luxury and still have all of the off-road features. And because of the way these seats fold completely flat with this kind of like storage deck area, I think you could store some gear down in here and then just have like a flat surface that bridges the gap. So you could have a sleeping pad on one side, reach under to grab clothing or other camp gear. I think this would actually be a pretty decent option from the factory for a sleeping and overlanding setup. Now, that being said, from like a daily life perspective, the hybrid battery system definitely eats into the cargo space a little bit, but with everything folding flat here, you definitely have a lot of room for, I think, what most people would need. In my opinion, the trade-off of this hybrid battery system here for a little bit of cargo space is definitely worth it because the powertrain on this thing feels amazing. We'll talk about that more if I get to drive another trim. For now, this one is really off-road, overlanding focused, and I think this one gets my big thumbs up for now. Well, I've had my fun for the day. Now we're getting into the trims that I actually don't even feel like I need to drive, because a lot of the standard features with the drivetrain and everything, it's going to be the same across all of these different trim levels. So the 700H F-Sport handling drives with its own unique characteristics. The Overtrail drives with its unique characteristics. And then bumping up to the next tier, I'm currently sitting in a luxury. This one is going to drive pretty similar to the Overtrail and the F-Sport without those like extra either sport features or off-road features. Now the luxury trim is going to bring in some different accents in here. So we have some really nice like tan leather across here, cool box, still standard across all of these. We have some different open pore wood finishing options over here. And this is just one of many different configurations that you can get into. All of the standard features that we've been talking about with the center locking diff, all of the mode selections, crawl control, MTS. So still off-road capable, but again, with that larger wheel, smaller tire size. The one up from this is actually the ultra luxury, and that one focuses even more on the passenger experience. If I was going to compare the luxury that I'm sitting in and the ultra luxe to Toyota products, it's kind of similar to the Limited 4Runner and the Platinum 4Runner. The Limited is very sophisticated, but then takes a step up when you get into the Platinum 4Runner, and then this one, very sophisticated, way more so than the 4Runner. And then when you get into the Ultra Luxe, of course, it's ultra luxurious. Trying to see if I notice anything quite like drastically different from the other vehicles, but as of right now, I don't. Everything in the cockpit area, very familiar to me now that I've driven a bunch of these. The back seats, standard as the other ones do. This one does have a third row, but the next one, the Ultra Luxe, that is where they take luxury and step it up a notch into a place that I've never really experienced for myself before. And now for the top dog, the Ultra Luxury. This one wasn't really that excited about, just kind of reading the specs on the paper. However, look at this interior and tell me it isn't the car for me. I'm sitting in the back right now, of course, because this is all about the passenger experience, but look at this interior. It's like a bright orange with fancy stitching all around. This thing is definitely not for everyone, but oh my gosh, it is so sick in my opinion. And now when we come to the second row seating here, this is what the Ultra Luxury is all about. This is almost like getting into the territory of having a private driver. If I had someone to drive me around, I would feel super at home in these VIP seats. We have curved headrests, seat backs, and some extra cushions, making this experience unlike anything else that I've sat in before. Of course, the performance up here is going to be very similar to everything that we've already talked about, but back here, you're going to be absolutely locked into these seats, just way more refined. I mean, when I think of luxury, this is what I think about right here. Not to mention 2 displays here. On this center control panel, we have adjustments for everything. I can change the audio from back here, the climate controls. It looks like I can actually change the position of the seating here. So, oh yeah, look at that. It's electronic. Up and down, seat back, forward. This raises me and lowers me. This is awesome. Relaxation mode, so I'm assuming, yep, that means these are massaging seats as well. So just like you get in the front on some models. And then you even have lighting controls here too, which is, that's really kind of over the top because we have like the normal touch lights right here, but then we have these almost like airplane looking lights. I guess it's like a reading light. And if I tap the button, changes the brightness. We have full on, and then you can dim it a little bit, down to off. Over here on this screen, it looks like it's almost mirroring at least the audio portion of the 12.3-inch display up there. So if I wanna put some tunes on, could actually cast to this too, so I'm sure I could like watch a movie or something back here, adjust the volume down below, or simply turn that off if you don't wanna be bothered with it. We of course have the rear window shades. That way you can keep a little bit of privacy, knock out some of the sunlight. Oh man, these massaging seats feel so good. There's actually an exclusive AC system for these as well. So we have these vents right here to control the climate in here. We have a wireless charger here, and then this actually looks like it opens up. Look at that. We have headphones in here. 2 USB-C ports, it looks like a 12-volt port as well. This is definitely ultra luxury in my opinion. Just in front of this screen here, we have some cup holders. Looks like even some more storage down here. You have an HDMI port. I'm assuming that's for these screens here. Just like another kind of storage compartment. So I guess you could hook up like a gaming console or a DVD player or something to that HDMI port and get it displayed on both of these really nice displays on the seat back. Now, who is this for? Not me. Other than the interior colors and everything, which I think is sick, this is definitely not the vehicle for me. However, for those looking for that ultra luxury high-end feel, if you have a private driver, this could be the vehicle for you. To be honest, I don't even feel important enough to be sitting back here right now. So let's get into some of my final thoughts. So that brings us to some final thoughts. If I had the option to choose any of these vehicles, for one, I'm definitely going with a 700H because of the hybrid, the power, how smooth it drives, all of the drive mode selections. I mean, this thing is really incredible. And then out of the different trims, what would I pick? You guys could probably already tell from what I filmed, but it would be this one right here, the Overtrail. Now, I do wish I had a little bit of experience in a GX 550 Overtrail because aesthetically speaking, I really prefer the 550 over the 700H. But that being said, appearance isn't everything. I really like a lot of features in here as well. I like the extra screen up here showing you your locking differentials. That's another thing that the GX doesn't have. The drive mode selection, MTS crawl control, DAC. I mean, everything in here is just even more luxury than I thought the GX was. And that thing is super nice too. It is a very practical vehicle, and even then some. It's kind of over the top for how I use vehicles, but I could definitely see myself living with something like this. While there are a lot of very cool options in this lineup, this one is just the one for me. It's probably the one that you guys would be most interested in too, but I'm curious what you think about the 600 Premium, the F-Sport handling, the Overtrail Luxury, and Ultra Luxe. Which one do you find the most intriguing? What do you think you would drive if money didn't matter? For me, money matters, so I won't be adding one of these to my fleet anytime soon. And I feel like that's going to be a common theme in a lot of these kind of review videos, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know this is very outside of my norm and what you guys typically see here on the channel, but I really enjoyed my time out here. Huge thank you to Lexus for the opportunity to come out and share some of my driving thoughts with this platform. Driving a vehicle that I'm not entirely familiar with for a short amount of time doesn't feel the best for me, so don't take anything that I said in this video to heart. There could be some things that I got wrong, or I could have said some things that I may not entirely truly feel unless I spent more time with the vehicle, but I feel like I got a good grasp on the LX 700H now, and yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. If you're new to this channel, I would appreciate it if you left a like on this video, if you made it all the way to the end, and consider clicking subscribe because I make new videos every single week, and now we are going to get back to Colorado and work on some of my own vehicles. That's all for now. Thank you guys for watching. I'll talk to you in the next one.